In the Book of Revelation, there is a passage that points to the city where Satan's throne is said to be. In 1934, Adolf Hitler addressed a massive crowd from a gigantic reconstruction of that very throne. Surrounded by blood-red banners, towering columns of fire, and thousands of followers in a state of complete devotion. To some historians, it wasn't just propaganda. It was a ritual. Before becoming the most hypnotic figure of the 20th century, Adolf Hitler was an ordinary man. So ordinary that he was almost invisible. As a child traveling through Austria, future filmmaker Orson Welles briefly met Hitler years before his rise to power. Later in life, Welles described him as a non-entity. No charisma, no magnetism, no presence whatsoever. Nothing. Hitler was completely, totally invisible. And yet, less than a decade later, millions would stand frozen under Hitler's spell. Crowds cried. People fainted. Hardened journalists described feeling an almost supernatural force radiating from him. So what happened? Did Hitler simply master propaganda? Or did something happen in the shadows of post-World War I Germany that transformed an empty man into something far darker? Tonight, we explore one of the strangest theories in modern history, that Adolf Hitler didn't create the movement. He became the vessel for it. The young Hitler was not impressive. He failed art school twice. He drifted through homeless shelters in Vienna. He sold cheap watercolor paintings to survive. People who knew him during this period often described him as socially awkward, emotionally detached, and strangely hollow. Not evil, just absent. That detail becomes important later, because many occult traditions teach the same disturbing concept. Before something can possess a person, the person must first be empty enough to receive it. After Germany's collapse in World War I, the country descended into humiliation, poverty, and chaos. Inflation destroyed savings overnight. Veterans returned home broken and furious. And in the middle of that chaos emerged secret societies obsessed with mysticism, lost civilizations, and apocalyptic destiny. The most infamous was the Thule Society. Members studied Germanic paganism, occult rituals, symbolic magic, astrology, and esoteric mythology. Some believed ancient Aryan beings possessed hidden spiritual power. Others believed Germany was destined to awaken a supernatural force that would restore its dominance. And according to several accounts, the society was searching for a political messiah. Not just a leader, a conduit. A man capable of channeling collective rage into something almost religious. That's when Dietrich Eckart entered the story. Poet, occultist, political radical, and possibly the most influential figure in Hitler's early transformation. Eckart saw something in Hitler almost nobody else noticed. Not brilliance, not intelligence, potential, a void. Under Eckart's mentorship, Hitler changed rapidly. Almost unnaturally rapidly. According to post-war occult researchers, Hitler participated in private rituals involving trance states, symbolic invocation, and attempts to contact higher intelligences. There's no hard evidence proving demonic summoning occurred. But what is documented is Nazi Germany's deep obsession with mysticism and symbolism. Heinrich Himmler redesigned the SS into something resembling a dark spiritual order. Castle Wilsberg became a ceremonial center filled with occult imagery. Nazi expeditions searched Tibet for ancient knowledge and relics. Astrologers, rune mystics, and esoteric thinkers circulated around the inner orbit of the regime. Hitler understood something ancient rulers always understood. Power becomes stronger when it feels sacred. The rallies weren't just political events. They were engineered experiences. The towering columns of light, the synchronized chants, the giant banners, the overwhelming scale. It created psychological submission. Some historians compared the rallies to religious revivals. Others compared them to occult initiation ceremonies. French philosopher Denis de Rougemont attended one rally expecting politics. What he described sounded more like possession. He later wrote that Hitler appeared less like a man giving a speech and more like a medium inhabited by another force. And perhaps the strangest detail of all, many witnesses claimed Hitler seemed physically transformed while speaking. His posture changed. His eyes widened unnaturally. His voice deepened into a harsh, almost inhuman rhythm. Then we arrive at one of the strangest and most controversial connections in Nazi history: the so-called Throne of Satan. In the late 19th century, German archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary in the ruins of Pergamon, the massive altar of Zeus. The structure was enormous: monumental staircases, towering columns, giant sculpted friezes depicting war between gods and titans. German engineers transported the altar piece by piece back to Berlin, where it became the centerpiece of the Pergamon Museum, which officially opened in 1930. And Adolf Hitler saw it. According to multiple historical accounts, Hitler was deeply impressed by the scale and overwhelming presence of the structure, not just its beauty, but its psychological effect. Then came 1934. Hitler ordered chief architect Albert Speer to design the ultimate rally platform for the massive Nazi party gatherings at Zeppelin Field in Nuremberg. And this is where the historical confusion begins. Many people today believe Hitler literally used the original Pergamon altar during Nazi ceremonies. That never happened. The real connection was architectural. Speer explicitly modeled the massive Zeppelin tribune, sometimes called Zeppelin's altar by later researchers, on the proportions and visual structure of the Pergamon altar. A perfect copy. He essentially took the ancient design and scaled it into a colossal modern political stage to overwhelm the individual and glorify the power above them. But Speer added something new: light, lots of it. Searchlights blasted into the night sky, creating what became known as the Cathedral of Light. Hundreds of thousands stood below in absolute silence while Hitler emerged above them like a high priest addressing a congregation. This wasn't ordinary political staging. It was engineered myth-making. To critics of the regime, the rallies resembled occult ceremonies disguised as political rally. To supporters, they felt transcendent. And to conspiracy researchers, the symbolism surrounding Pergamon, the ancient throne of Satan, transformed the rallies into something darker. Evidence that the Nazi regime intentionally borrowed ancient sacred architecture to manufacture awe, submission, and near-religious devotion on an industrial scale. Now, let's separate documented history from speculation. There is no verified evidence Adolf Hitler was literally possessed by a demon. No proof of supernatural entities. No confirmed occult ritual that magically transformed him overnight. But there is evidence that Hitler consciously constructed a mythic identity around himself using psychology, symbolism, mass emotion, and spectacle. There's evidence he practiced speeches obsessively in mirrors. Evidence he studied crowd behavior. Evidence the Nazi movement intentionally blurred the line between politics and religious experience. And there's another uncomfortable truth. Maybe the supernatural explanation exists because reality is harder to accept. Because if Hitler was simply possessed by evil, then humanity isn't responsible. But if an ordinary, unimpressive man transformed himself into a living symbol through propaganda, fear, economic collapse, and mass psychology, then it could happen again. The dark truth is that Orson Welles was right. Hitler was a non-entity. He was an empty vessel, but he wasn't filled by a devil from hell. He was filled by the collective anger, hatred, and desperation of a broken nation. We don't need monsters from another realm to destroy the world. When the conditions are right, we are entirely capable of creating them ourselves. That may be the most frightening possibility of all. Thanks for watching. Stay curious. I'll see you next time. Peace.